When Hometown premiered on HGTV in January 2016, few could have predicted that a soft-spoken carpenter from Laurel, Mississippi, would become one of the most beloved figures in home renovation television. Ben Napier, alongside his wife Erin, brought something rare to the genre: patience. Where other shows emphasize speed, drama, or budget shocks, Hometown emphasized story. And at the center of that story was Ben, his hands covered in sawdust, his voice calm, his focus absolute. But by early 2023, viewers noticed a change. Ben appeared less frequently in the physical labor shots. He was seen more often standing back, observing, or offering direction from a distance. Social media filled with speculation. Was he leaving the show? Had something happened behind the scenes? The truth, as it would emerge, was both simpler and more human than any conspiracy theory. Ben Napier had been hiding a painful reality from the cameras for months. To understand what happened, you have to go back to the beginning, not of the show, but of the man. Ben Napier was born and raised in Laurel, Mississippi, a small town that would later become synonymous with his name. His father, Wayne Napier, was a preacher, and faith shaped the household. Ben grew up attending church, participating in community service, and learning the rhythms of discipline and purpose. As a teenager, he became a youth minister at Laurel First United Methodist Church, a role he held until 2014. He preached, mentored young people, and organized events. On paper, he was on a path toward full-time ministry. But woodworking had entered his life as a quiet parallel passion. His father gave him his first set of tools, chisels, a hammer, hand planes, and taught him not just how to build, but how to think about structure, grain, and function. Ben practiced in spare hours, building small furniture pieces and repairing things around the church. What began as a hobby became a skill, and the skill began to demand more of his attention. At the University of Mississippi, Ben studied history. That choice would later prove essential to his renovation work. He learned to read buildings as historical documents, understanding why a 1920s craftsman bungalow was built a certain way, what materials were available in Mississippi during the Depression, how architectural trends moved through the South. History gave him a framework for preservation. Faith gave him a framework for service. Carpentry gave him a framework for action. By 2014, Ben had stepped away from youth ministry to pursue woodworking full-time. He opened a small workshop in downtown Laurel. Erin, a graphic designer, began photographing his projects and posting them online. The before and after images were authentic, unpolished, and compelling. They showed a young couple quietly transforming a struggling small town, one house at a time. HGTV took notice. In 2015, producers approached the Napiers about a show. The network wanted something different from the aggressive, budget-driven renovation formats that dominated the genre. They wanted warmth, community, and craftsmanship. Hometown was born. From the first season, Ben's role was unmistakably physical. He was the one who removed the rotten beams, who hand-sanded the original hardwood floors, who custom-built cabinetry from salvaged pine. Each episode showed him lifting, hauling, measuring, cutting, and installing. Viewers saw the sweat. They saw the strain, but they did not see the cumulative toll. Between seasons, Ben worked constantly. The show's production schedule required multiple renovations simultaneously. On top of that, he ran Scotsman Co., his own woodworking business, producing custom furniture and commissioned pieces. He appeared at promotional events, gave interviews, and participated in the spin-off series Hometown Takeover, which launched in 2021 and sent the Napiers to other struggling towns like Wetumpka, Alabama, and Sebring, Florida. In each location, Ben led construction crews, coordinated with local contractors, and performed high-skill carpentry himself. The human body is not designed for that pace. Ben had been lifting heavy materials, working in awkward positions, and performing repetitive overhead motions for nearly a decade. The shoulder pain began subtly, a twinge when raising his arm, a dull ache after long days of sanding. He ignored it at first, as many craftsmen do. pain was part of the job. He took over the counter anti-inflammatories and kept working. By late 2022, the pain had become persistent. Aaron noticed him favoring his right shoulder during filming. Crew members observed that he would sometimes pause mid-lift, adjust his stance, and proceed more carefully than before. Ben did not mention it on camera. He did not want the show to become about his health. But behind the scenes, he had quietly consulted an orthopedist. The diagnosis was a rotator cuff tear. The rotator cuff is a group of 4 tendons and muscles that stabilize the shoulder joint. Tears can result from acute injury, but more commonly in Ben's case, from years of overuse, repeated lifting overhead work, and heavy strain. Surgery was recommended. Without it, the tear could worsen, leading to permanent weakness and loss of range of motion. Ben scheduled the procedure for early 2023. Then came the difficult decision how to handle the show. Hometown Season 7 began filming while Ben was in the pre-surgical phase. He was still working, but with significant limitations. Heavy lifting was out. Overhead work was out. Extended periods of manual labor were out. The production team adjusted. Scenes were reorganized so that Ben could provide guidance and supervision rather than direct physical labor. Aaron stepped into a more visible on-site leadership role, coordinating contractors and overseeing installations. To the casual viewer, the changes were subtle, but longtime fans noticed immediately. Online forums and social media platforms lit up with observations. Ben seems tired. He's not doing the demo anymore. Is something wrong? Some speculated about creative disagreements with HGTV. Others wondered if Ben was preparing to leave the show entirely. A few correctly guessed a health issue, but without confirmation, rumors multiplied. The surgery took place in mid-2023. Recovery from rotator cuff repair is notoriously slow and strict. For 6 to 8 weeks, Ben's arm was immobilized. He could not lift anything heavier than a coffee cup. He could not drive. He could not work in his shop. Physical therapy began gradually, passive range of motion exercises, then active movement, then resistance training. Full recovery typically takes 4 to 6 months, and even then, the shoulder may never be exactly as it was before the injury. During this period, Ben's screen time on Hometown was minimal. Episodes that aired in late 2023 and early 2024 had been filmed earlier, but the editing choices reflected his reduced physical involvement. He appeared in design meetings, client consultations, and final reveals, but the sequences of him building, lifting, and installing were largely absent. Aaron carried more of the on-camera workload. The show's rhythm shifted. Ben and Aaron did not immediately publicly explain the situation. That silence, as the reference script you provided noted, fueled further speculation. But when they did speak, they were direct and transparent. In interviews in late 2023 and early 2024, including appearances on The Jennifer Hudson Show and various podcasts, Ben described the injury, the surgery, and the recovery in detail. He explained that he had tried to work through the pain, that he had made it worse, and that surgery became unavoidable. He also emphasized something important. The decision to step back from physical labor on the show was not just about his health. It was about the integrity of the work. A renovation show that fakes the labor or cuts corners is betraying its audience. Ben refused to appear on camera, pretending to do work he could not safely perform. Instead, he chose to be honest, first privately with the production team, then publicly with viewers. That honesty was met with overwhelming support. Fans expressed relief that the situation was not a departure or a scandal, but a human injury and a responsible recovery. Many shared their own experiences with rotator cuff surgery. The Napier's willingness to discuss the mundane reality of physical labor, its toll, its risks, its necessary accommodations, strengthened their connection with their audience rather than weakening it. As Ben recovered, he made changes. He redesigned his workshop to reduce repetitive strain. He incorporated ergonomic tools and lighter materials where possible. He delegated more tasks to his crew rather than insisting on doing everything himself. He also began focusing more intentionally on fitness and diet, working to lower his blood pressure and manage his weight. These were not dramatic transformations, but steady, practical adjustments. Professionally, Ben's role on Hometown evolved rather than diminished. He remained the show's structural authority, the person who understood load-bearing walls, foundation issues, and historical building techniques. But he no longer tried to be the sole physical performer of that knowledge. The show adapted, and so did he. In many ways, the injury forced an overdue conversation about the sustainability of renovation television. Unlike competitive cooking or design shows, renovation requires genuine physical labor. The people performing that labor are not immune to the laws of biology. Tendons wear, joints degrade, bodies need rest. Ben Napier's experience was not a failure of his body. It was a predictable consequence of years of demanding work. What made it notable was simply that he talked about it openly. Ben's contributions to Hometown extend far beyond his physical labor. His historical knowledge has shaped the show's preservation ethic. Unlike many renovation programs that gut historic homes and install generic modern interiors, Hometown emphasizes restoration. Original moldings are saved, not replaced. Vintage doors are repaired, not discarded. Period-appropriate materials are sourced whenever possible. This approach is directly attributable to Ben's background in history and his respect for architectural authenticity. His woodworking business, Scotsman Co., has become a platform for teaching those values. Through online content and in-person workshops, Ben demonstrates techniques for joinery, finishing, and material selection. He emphasizes patience and precision over speed. His philosophy is simple: a well-made piece of furniture or a properly restored house should outlast its maker. The spin-off Hometown Takeover expanded that philosophy from single homes to entire communities. In each targeted town, the Napiers work with local leaders to identify blighted properties, renovate public spaces, and stimulate economic activity. Ben's role in these large-scale projects is more managerial than hands-on, but his standards remain exacting. He inspects every significant structural decision, reviews every major carpentry installation, and ensures that the work meets the show's quality bar. The speculation that surrounded Ben's reduced screen time in Season 7 missed a central truth he never left. He was never fired. He never quit. He was simply a man recovering from surgery, working within his limitations, and trusting his wife and team to carry the load temporarily. That is not a scandal. It is ordinary life, amplified by the lens of television. If anything, the episode revealed how unrealistic our expectations of renovation hosts have become. We watch them demolish kitchens, frame walls, and install tile, and we rarely consider the cumulative physical cost. Ben Napier's injury was not a failure of his character or his skill. It was a predictable outcome of a demanding profession. The only unusual thing was that he let us see it. As of 2025, Ben Napier has largely recovered his shoulder function, though he remains mindful of his limitations. He continues to work on Hometown, which has been renewed for additional seasons. He continues to run Scotsman Co. He continues to appear in Hometown Takeover. And he continues to be, for millions of viewers, the calm, capable craftsman who made Laurel, Mississippi feel like home. But there is a difference now. The show no longer pretends that physical labor has no cost. Ben no longer hides his pain, and viewers, having watched him navigate injury and recovery, understand that the man behind the sawdust is not a character. He is a real person, with a real body, doing real work. That perhaps is the most authentic thing Hometown has ever shown us.